students, professionals, press, and everyone with a strong appetite in this subject. Welcome also to this first interactive session during the EFFoST Congress here in Bruges, and look at us, what a view we have. My name is Femke van der Velde, and I'm thrilled to host this panel discussion where food science and technology stakeholders will interact with you, today's and tomorrow's audience. How do you estimate the food industry, and how do we measure the impact of their innovations on environment and climate? Before we kick off this inspiring dialogue, I'd like to introduce you to our 6 panel members. A round of applause for them, please. During the previous session, you've been introduced to our 3 captains of industry, but a quick reminder of who they are. We welcome Evelien Frederik, the Group R&D Manager at Agristo, the producer of frozen potato products. Welcome also to Emilie Haspeslag, the Sustainability Director at Ardo, the producer of frozen vegetables and fruit. Welcome also to Dr. Frederik de Pijpere from Barry Callebaut, one of the most innovative world-leading cocoa and chocolate companies. Welcome Professors Vincenzo Fogliano and Dorothée Goffin. Vincenzo Fogliano comes from the Netherlands, where he works as a food scientist for the Wageningen University and Research. He's the chair of the Food Quality and Design Group and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Functional Food, next to a well-respected author with an international audience. We're glad to have you, Vincenzo. Dorothée Goffin is a chemical and bioindustrial engineer, as well as a doctor in agricultural sciences and biological engineering at l'Université de Liège. She's the founder and director of the Smart Gastronomy Lab, a co-creative and prototyping laboratory which endeavors to establish connections between the culinary, the alimentary, and technological worlds. Welcome, Dorothée. Last but not least, welcome also to short-chain supplier Thibault Lejeune. As coordinator of the Bruges Food Lab, Thibault connects and empowers a sustainable food network in Bruges. Besides, the Bruges Food Lab is the driving force behind most initiatives and overarching projects that focus on the local food strategy. When he imagines the food of tomorrow, it sure is sustainable, equitable, ecological, and social. Thanks for being present, Thibault. So, let me guide you through the concept of our discussion. During registration to this session, we've asked our audience to score 5 statements on a 5N scale. Apart from that, we've also collected some of your remarks and questions regarding those statements. A selection of those shall be addressed during the panel discussion itself. Please bear in mind that all projected results are anonymous, apart from age and gender. At the end of the panel debate, there is room for some more questions. And we will also request you to again vote for the 5 statements through a QR code in order to measure the impact of today's discussion. Let's get started. Statement 1. Ultra-processed foods can be part of a healthy lifestyle. Vincenzo, my first question is for you. Is processed food always worse compared to fresh food?
Thank you for the question. The answer is no, absolutely not. I mean, the ultra-processed food depends how they are designed. It's not a category, although it's pictured like a category, but I want you all to reflect on the fact that the processed food can be very useful. I mean, some of you are celiac, for instance, in this room, cannot eat gluten. So if you want to have a gluten-free product, that needs to be processed. You don't want to eat lactose, you want a lactose-free milk, needs to be processed. If you have children and you cannot breastfeed, you need infant formula. It's ultra-processed. What we want to do, I mean, it's not all the processed food are bad. depends on the processed food. It's not a synonymous of junk food. At the end, processing is a tool. It's like an hammer. You can build something good with a hammer, or you can smash the hands of your neighbor. I mean, we cannot blame the hammer. So processing is a tool. So categorize food based on processing, I don't think is a good service.
Okay, that's clear. Frederik, no chocolate without processing, right?
Well,
how does this, sorry to interrupt you, how does this relate to a healthy diet?
Well, yeah, I think you can imagine, I would not recommend to eat raw beans actually. So I think you can imagine that if you want to indulge our chocolate, that there are some process steps in between. It's a little bit actually crazy to see chocolate as an ultra-processed food, because I'm going to name the processes that are involved. So we talk about fermenting, natural process, drying, natural process, nothing wrong there. We talk about roasting. We talk about first debacterization, so that's with steam. We talk about roasting, that's with heat. Then basically we mix, we blend, we conch, and that's how you make chocolate. Of course, can you do it in your kitchen? It's hard. Does it contain more than 5 ingredients? Typically, yes. Yeah. So sometimes we make chocolate with 3 ingredients only, or 2, actually. Actually, our marketeers are wild about that. So chocolate with 2 ingredients, but in the end, typically it contains more. But that's why it's called an ultra-processed foods. Now, in the end, I think I said it already in my talk. Chocolate has a place for me in any diet, preferably a healthy diet, if you consume it with moderation. So indulge it as a delicacy, not as something for every day, a lot of it.
Emily, according to you, is it possible for processed food to be the better choice in terms of nutritional value?
Well, thank you for that question, because in the case of our products, frozen vegetables, we actually have scientific proof. It was a study conducted by the University of Ghent that shows that frozen vegetables actually contain even more vitamins, for example, than the fresh ones that you buy in the shops. Of course, the fresh ones that you harvest in your garden directly and eat them directly, those will have the highest vitamin content. But after 2-3 days, the vitamin content goes down in vegetables and fruit and potatoes. So when we freeze them, we fix that content. And so by this, the processed food, in our case, the frozen vegetables and fruit, contain higher vitamins.
Thibaut, how do you relate to this first statement?
Well, I think there's something to be said about ultra-processed meat products, which have been linked to non-communicable diseases. But besides that, I also asked Kopjeswam, a local producer of oyster mushrooms, and his viewpoint of ultra-processed food and a healthy lifestyle was taken a bit more holistically, as in he believes that we need to stay true to what product or what produce is really prominent in the product we're talking about. And especially so because we need more food literacy, we need more connection to the food we are eating. And if you're overproducing or over-engineering products, then sometimes the main ingredient can get lost.
Okay. And Dorothee, what do food scientists think about the impact of ultra-processed food on public health? Is there scientific evidence that suggests a limit to the amount of processed food we should all consume?
Yeah, well, as we said already, it's not the problem of the process itself, it's more the products that you will get from those processes. It means that when we talk about ultra-processed product, it's more a very transformed product, so with poor nutritional composition, with lots of additives, which can have synergistic effect on your health, and also accumulation of some types of molecules, such as gluten, because we put gluten everywhere to have big breads and very soft breads and everything. But with that, you can have some intolerance from that. And another last thing very interesting that was found very recently is the matrix effect. It means that when you find an ingredient in the nature, it's constructed at one point so that all the nutrients are stocked into the structure at in one way. When you have ultra-processed products, you have different ingredients extracted from nature and then put all together, but not in a specific structure. it means that your body doesn't digest those products the same way you digest natural products. So that's a problem, because we have a digestive tract working in one way, and we give some foods that are not adapted to this digestibility. So that's the problem of the processed food. It's not the way we transform them, it's the way we're taking building blocks and put them all together in a way that it's not normal for our body.
Mm-hmm. And Eveline, is Agristo considering to offer more minimal processed products in its range nowadays?
Yes, of course, we are doing a lot of efforts to process our products as minimally as possible. But you have to know that if we look at our current portfolio, it's our pre-fried products, that by definition, these products are catalogued as processed foods. Even if we look towards our classic fries, they only contain 2 ingredients, and they have a quite easy processing, peeling, cutting, blanching, and frying and freezing. But we actually, by definition, cannot go towards minimally processed foods. So therefore, we believe more in focusing on a controlled processing so that it's less harmful than a consumer would even do it at home, making their own fries. And on top, clean label. Clean label is a hot topic for us. We do have sophisticated formulas with a lot of E-numbers. And this is really to meet the consumer, because they ask for super crispy fries, and we need today these E-numbers. But we have a full program running to have by 2030 a full portfolio of clean label alternatives. So this is how we approach it today.
Thank you. So let's continue with statement number 2. Do you understand all the information on food packaging? A lot of information is mentioned on the label, but there are still a lot of misunderstandings. Frederik, can you perhaps elaborate on the legal framework regarding packaging?
Yes, I can. I'm not a specialist per se, but there is such a thing as the European FIC, so Food Information to Consumers. The main purpose of that is obviously to inform the consumer. And the goal is that information is on the package that should be there, not to mislead. So there is a clear guidance given on packaging. Now this information, of course, I think you know most of it, and there are typical stuff on packaging to be mentioned to the consumer, like a list of ingredients, very important allergens. You would be surprised how many people are allergenic to something and really need to be properly informed. Information on who produced it and so forth. There is also, of course, and that's crucial to any food product, and especially the perishable ones, best before date, use by date. That's also a lot of confusion. So if people say, I don't understand, or I understand most of the information, then I think it would be good to see what is it that they don't understand. I think that would be very nice to know. The only thing I would like to finish with is that we have already seen some products that we have put in the market that were so small. So basically, just a small rectangular, for example, sugar paste that you put into the market, 1 kilogram block. It was a Swiss product. And actually, the amount of information that you need to put on the label, given the fact that there is a minimum font size specified and all I have been listed already that should be on the plate, means that you do not basically fit with one layer of information, and we had to put a booklet on it, basically multi-layered, to have all the information in there to properly inform the consumer. So I think the regulation is there to help the consumer to understand what you are really buying, and I think that's a good thing. And indeed, if there's something that is not understood, we should clearly know what it is that is not understood.
Yeah. And Emily, any suggestions of what the industry could do to solve all these confusions?
But there is also one specific part where I think there's also confusion is, for example, in the way the preparation mode, which we see that we have to put on, but we also notice that the consumers don't follow it. So we put something on there because the regulation asks for it. But if there is if people don't follow it, we need to be very conscious about together, the industry, together with the legislative organizations or bodies, how useful it is. For example, in Denmark, we need to put on the frozen raspberries heat before use, but we know that no single consumer is actually heating up raspberries before eating them, or in some culinary applications, but in most they don't. So why even put it on there? So we need to be smart about what is on there and go into conversation also with the legislative bodies about it, to really see how much is this booklet then really read, and what is really followed by consumers.
Yeah, that's a clear message. And Dorothee, from a scientific perspective, how do you look at mentioning such as e-numbers and Nutri-Score on packaging?
Well, Nutri-Score is really interesting because it's a good tool to communicate to the consumer on basic nutrition, but it's only one face of the dice because it doesn't take into account a lot of things like the presence of additive, the fact that we all have to eat differently because we are just different and we are working differently. Also the fact that some of the ingredients are also containing good things like omega-3 in salmon or polyphenols in chocolates and things like that. So there's also the positive way. Even if we have a product with a Nutri-Score E, you can have good products too and good nutrients inside those products. So it's only one face of the dice, and it doesn't give you all the information. So Nutri-Score is very nice, it's very good, it's simple, we all understand it, but we need other information to be sure, the digestibility and things like that, the glycemic index, there's a lot of information not inside the Nutri-Score. So you still have to have an eye on the list of the ingredient and things like that.
Thibaut, one for you. What strategy to adopt in order to inform the consumer that the products are local?
So I think I've got an example from Bourbas. Bourbas is a local grocery store, really short chain one here in Bruges. And what he's doing is that he could present you with 4 different types of chicory, but he doesn't want to do that because he wants to be able to put a local farmer in the spotlight and make it about the farmer less than about I have 5 different chicories that you can choose from. So then the fact that he just focuses on selling one chicory just from one single producer makes it so that he can focus on what's the story of the farmer, where was it grown, how much food miles did it make, how was it produced. That's a strategy he likes to use.
And Evelyn, is that also something that's familiar for you? And in what way does Agristo claim its sustainability?
Well, on the topic local, so for our Belgian customers, it's easy to be done. So they can claim really produced with Belgian potatoes or produced in Belgium. However, for all our other countries, and they are with many, it's very difficult to claim a sustainability story. Because you have to know that what makes us sustainable is that we have a resource-efficient a production facility very close to our farmers, which can cultivate potatoes with high yields. And on top, the large volumes enables us to transport by boat. And this is our sustainable story. And if we look then at our footprint compared to local producers out of this potato belt, the area where cultivation of potatoes is less ideal, then we have a far lower food carbon footprint. Carbon foot.
We understand you. And Vincenzo, from an educational point of view, how should all these messages be included and understood on the packaging? Any advice?
Let's say that I would like to say that this information on the packaging, first of all, 50% of the consumer, they don't look at them. So I think that when we keep on putting a lot of detailed information, we are always targeting people that are already very health conscious, and maybe if the information are not on the packaging, they can go on website, app, whatever, and find them. So to me, if the effort in educating the effort in education should be to educate people that don't care. So it should be very straightforward message, very little black and white things. So in this respect, I completely agree. Nutri-Score doesn't catch many things, but on the other hand, if I'm looking for a specific category of product, I'm looking at my breakfast cereals and I see, okay, this breakfast cereal is A and this is D, I can make my choice. So I think we have to be careful in the communication strategies and really look at people who is able to communicate on TikTok, social media. These are people, I mean, the influencers are making much more impact than, I mean, all the academia in terms of informing the consumer. So we have to, this is the reality, and we have to tackle the reality, I think.
Yeah. Next, statement 3. To reduce my carbon footprint, I prefer local products. Thibaut, first one for you. How do you ensure that people are buying more locally produced products? And what are the biggest struggles in doing so?
I think there's two sides to the story. I think local is, well, I think sustainability claims are often hijacked with the local words and trying to attract people with, this is local, so it's sustainable, which is not always the case. It's more about how is something produced, what methods are used. So I think that's the first one. But then to look further than just carbon footprint when talking about sustainability, I think there's a nice anecdote of a research that Inagro, which is an agricultural research organization, did, I think about a year ago, towards the growing of pulses in Flanders and how doable is it? How is it okay? Can we grow pulses with profit? And they found out, yes, it's possible to grow pulses with profit. And if you look at the price of what does it cost to grow a pulse, it was a specific pulse they were talking about, in Flanders, it exactly matched the world price of pulses. The small, side note that there was is that the wages of the farmers were not included yet. Which means that if local farmers have to compete with world market prices, they can't get a wage at all. So if you're talking about an income of farmers, then no, it's not sustainable at all. So the answer should probably be, if you want, if looking at farmers and you want sustainability, then we need to try and embed those pulses that are grown in the hinterland of Bruges, for example, in locally embedded chains. I think that's a way of making it last.
Mm-hmm. And Frederik, from your experience, is local the only answer when aiming to reduce the carbon footprint?
So, world of chocolate, cocoa is a bit difficult to grow local. Huh? There's a region where cocoa is grown, so that's the region 20 degrees north and south latitude of the equator. Well, that's not where we are, so basically, so that doesn't work. But of course, I mean, local here or local there, we see that actually cocoa producing or harvesting countries are also interested to see that the cocoa that is basically harvested in their country is not simply exported to a country like us, but is also there locally valorized upstream into local chocolate. So I give an example, made in Côte d'Ivoire can be a very strong statement if you have a product marketed in Africa. Okay, back to Belgium. So our cocoa, no, it's not local, obviously, but our sugar is, of course, our dairy can be, and so forth. And there's also an element, I mean, we focus now a lot on ingredients, but there's the whole processing, there's the whole carbon dioxide story that you can tell about the processing, about your factory. So basically we have objectives in our, we call it Forever Chocolate sustainability journey, where one of the pillars is really about the carbon footprint, and where we say we want to become a net zero company by 2050. So that is, of course, a quite bold statement to make, but it's for us the only way to go. This is not a marketing story, this is a true objective, and putting the target, of course, high. Let's see where we get. Yeah.
And Emily, how do you assess this third statement?
Yeah, so of course there are products that we can produce locally. When we talk about peas, beans, potatoes, they're very well grown here. There are other products, even when we talk tomatoes, you can find Belgian tomatoes, but they actually need to be grown in greenhouse gases because we don't have the climate to produce them efficiently in Belgium. So then it's actually better to buy Spanish tomatoes, which are grown in open fields. Even canned tomatoes, frozen tomatoes, actually have a lower carbon footprint than fresh tomatoes from Belgium. So it's a complicated statement, and there is a lot of intricacy into it. But it's still even buying, for example, Belgian tomatoes is better than buying meat or other products from a carbon footprint perspective. So I think that eating local in the season from products that you can grow here, of course, there's no question about that. But outside the season, there are also other alternatives that it's better to bring them than from further away. There is one big aspect when we talk about local, which is transport. So if we talk, for example, with products that are flown in by plane, you even still see that as a quality statement. Like in markets here, I've seen plain mangoes, mangoes by plane, and it was put as a quality statement. That's the worst. Mm-hmm. So whatever else you can do, if it comes by ship, then it's okay, the mango or the bananas. If you fly it in, that's a stupidity from an environmental perspective.
Yeah, okay. We move forward with statement 4. Foods are often unnecessarily packaged and contribute significantly to the overconsumption of plastic packaging. Emily, back again. Can't food companies use more biodegradable materials in conventional packaging?
So we have within our company the objective to be completely, to use all, not biodegradable, but at least recyclable packaging by 2025, 100%. We have tested biodegradable plastics within frozen, and it actually just doesn't work yet. We would like to, but the technology is not there yet. Of course, we will continue to do tests, etc., because it's an interesting way to reduce or to have better types of plastic. But there still needs to have some innovation and technological advancements on that point.
Okay. And Dorothee, is a transition to biodegradable materials feasible, and what are then the exact main challenges, according to you?
It's not that easy, because we all want to have those types of packaging, but we have to remember that the packaging is not only to give you the food products, it's also to preserve the food. It's also to preserve the food from spoilage, oxidation, drying, water absorption. You don't want to have biscuits that are completely soft because the packaging is not that good. So the packaging is something also that helps you to make marketing, information to the consumer. So it's not only plastic, it's also a lot of different technologies inside the packaging. So it's not that easy to change everything at one time. So science still have to work on those packaging, and there's also big difference between compostable industrially, recyclable, and so it's a lot of different notions that people doesn't know about, and also information in that science is very important, because we still don't know when we have a packaging where we put this packaging, in the compost, in the blue bag. It's very difficult for the consumer. So science, industry, and consumer have to go together and see some new ideas, new innovation on that part, I think.
I think we can all agree on this. And Thibaut, in what way do local producers tackle this packaging issue, according to you?
So, what local retailers do, so they get, of course, from the producer, just really in like well, they get products without packaging from the producers because they also buy short chain and they buy directly from the farmer, maybe just with a truck transporting it to the city. But what I think when I hear all these, like a lot of scientific approaches and biodegradable and then biodegradable and frozen, I think you can take the approach of looking at it in a scientific innovation way and really trying to get the most sustainable packaging. But then, on the other hand, I also think you really need to work on, and that's also what retailers then try to do, or at least Karmamarkt does, a local retailer, is really try to work on the consumer and making them not forget their packages from home and just like our grandparents used to do, go to the butcher or go to wherever with your own packaging and then they fill it for you. I think it's it's not so far-fetched and it's really just a like a mind shift you need to implement in consumers. So I think that's a different way of looking at it. I also think it's like it's a bit of both, of course. And then a last thing, when I talked to Karmamarkt Isabel about this, was she definitely understands cucumbers, most often used example, they need to be packaged to last longer. She agrees. And if it's necessary, do it, because to waste a product would be even worse. But that doesn't excuse all those other products being packaged 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and just a whole bunch of products that are so overpacked that it's just becoming ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Vincenzo, let's elaborate on the cucumber example. I don't know about you, but I see as many cucumbers wrapped as unwrapped. And what role can food packaging play in order to reduce food waste?
Yeah, let's follow up on what you said. I completely agree, and that's, I think, what the consumer get frustrated. We all, as a consumer, get frustrated when we see all our garbage bin full of plastic, and we say, okay, a disaster. I had 2 days of a meal, and But on the other hand, I don't think that we have the same feeling of guilt when we throw away food. And it's important that you realize that when you throw away 1 cucumber, you are making much more damage than the plastic of 100 cucumbers. So it's really much more relevant and disastrous to throw out food. So I think that we should keep the balance. I agree with not unnecessary overpackage, but I mean, if a company do unnecessary overpackage, it's a stupid company. It's a cost adding packaging. So in theory, you should not do. Maybe we as a consumer we can hit this company, but don't go just for simply the idea. If you want to buy food that is not packaged, you need to be a very good consumer in terms of making your list. Take this food and prepare it, consume it. But if, as many of us, we just grocery once per week, and then we waste food in our fridge, that's really something to avoid.
Finally, we continue to statement number 5. We are open-minded to new food innovations. I would taste them or buy them in a supermarket. Emily, if you look at the scales, does this outcome surprise you or not at all? And do you expect younger people to be more open-minded?
Yeah, we would expect younger people to be more open-minded, of course. But I was expecting it to be even or somehow more positive. At the same time, I think that as a food company, it's also important on how we position innovations in the market, and that sometimes we can make it overcomplicated or too exotic, and that can scare some consumers away. We see that, and I don't know about you, but sometimes putting a vegan label on a product is affecting negatively how that product is perceived, because then it has a label and it has a stigmatic and it has a social aspect to it. So sometimes making it more simple and more accessible to many consumers would maybe increase that percentage even further.
Mm-hmm. And Eveline, you've been mentioning them already in your first session, but could you repeat like the food innovations that you are working on within the firm today?
Today, as I was saying, on the clean label angle before, so we do have already a lot of alternatives within our formed products. But within our fries is a bit more difficult. Here we have starches, E numbers, and we are looking for a good alternative there. Going back to the session of this morning, of course, we worked on 2 innovations, which are new shapes, the Sidewinders innovation. There we also focused not only on the nice, attractive shape, but also on the taste. So the crispness level, but also, let's say, the savory aspect of the outer layer is also very important to attract and to maintain our consumer in the end.
Mm-hmm. And Frederik, how does Barry Callebaut position itself to food innovations? I know your answer already, but go ahead.
Let me see if I can surprise you. No, if you look to the statement that is there on the screen, it's nice that this audience is open-minded to new products, especially when we talk about traditional foods like chocolate. But in the end, it's all about taste. So the statement, 3 words, taste is king, is really important to our food category. And yeah, tasting them once, that's nice, but that doesn't mean anything to business. So basically, it's the intention of consumers to buy again after they have tasted, after they have indulged the product, and are willing to pay the right price for it, because in the end, it's also about at what price do you want to bring those food innovations, because again, nice food innovations at the wrong price, been there, done that, doesn't work. So also a company like Barry Callebaut needs to admit that in the past there were some products launched that were not at the right price in the market, and then they simply don't fly. So in the end, the right product at the right price, that's important. But looking to innovations in the framework of this discussion, of course, we talk about the total carbon footprint again, so what can we do there? And then we see that, the climate change, I already talked about in the plenary, it's a reality, the deforestation, it's a reality. So that means that on top of that, there is scarcity in the market, and especially in West Africa, Ivory Coast, Ghana, where 70% of the world crop comes from. That creates, of course, a very delicate, fragile situation. We have a structural deficit for the moment of 10% availability, less availability of cocoa, which makes that, and people that follow, if there are people in the audience that follow the cocoa price on the market, well, you will have seen that it went through the roofs. There are suppliers of chocolate equipment that talk to me and they say, hey, Frederik, how long is this going to last? Because we are not able to to sell any machine at the moment, because people, even local chocolatiers, they sell their machines for that reason. Now, how basically can we impact on that? Cocoa goes through the roof in price, so you need to look for alternatives. I'm back to my story there. So we are already looking into alternatives, again, not to completely change the chocolate assortment, but basically to see whether we can offer an alternative range as well. Cocoa is one, but the carbon footprint, if you talk about chocolate, is mainly, milk chocolate is mainly about dairy, cows. Cows have an enormous, unfortunately, impact. I love any animal, but cows have an enormous impact on our ecosystem and our ecological footprint. So replacing dairy is a challenge as well, and we've been working on that with several launches already. What is crucial there, if you replace milk powder by any other product, it can be soy, can be, we work actually a lot with chufa, which is actually a Spanish, people in the room that are Spanish will know it very good. I see some people nodding, yes, horchata, somebody knows that, yes, voilà, I thought the lady saw it. So basically it's a dairy replacement, works very well, but for chocolate, very important, again, taste, texture, mouthfeel, and that's where it still will be successful, yes or not. So if it matches all those boxes, then it will be successful. If not, you better rethink twice before you launch these food innovations.
And Dorothee, I wonder, what is your research saying on sustainable alternatives related to this subject?
Yeah, for example, we're working on the ProteBoost project, which it's inside the Food Wall initiative. And inside this project, we are developing alternative proteins, but bacterial alternative proteins. The idea is to be able to produce purple bacteria and not to dry them as we normally do with new types of ingredient and put them into food products, but to use them fresh. So really to have a fresh bacterial biomass in order to put them into food and make real food from those bacterial proteins and not food with bacterial proteins. It's really the difference. It means that we can make a burger, a bacterial burger, and not a burger with some proteins from bacteria. So it's really a different way of looking at the alternative proteins. Not dry them, put them fresh, because when you use meat, you use it fresh. You don't dry the meat and then put it inside the burger. So it's another way to put those types of products in the market.
Mm-hmm. And Emily, do you agree that innovation doesn't necessarily need to be something exotic or far-fetched?
No, I agree. We have shown some innovations in the previous session as well, where we are actually sometimes even going back to basics on product level, for example. It can be that instead of selling the florets, we sell the florets and the stems and frozen. That's one innovation. But we've seen innovations in the past years like cauliflower rice, which is chopped cauliflower, which is helping people eat more healthy and adding convenience to the consumption. Or we have launched corn ribs, so it's corn cups that are quartered so that you can put them on your barbecue, and it's selling now very nicely. So it doesn't need to be exotic, but also that's on product level, but we are looking a lot on innovation in agronomy and how we grow our vegetables. And there you can look to science, but we can also look to the biology and the real agronomy and going back to basics to understanding how a soil functions and these kind of things, and innovate in that sense also, not in an exotic way, but really going back to the basics. And I think that's somewhere where we are looking at a lot for the moment, really going back to the basics of it.
Interesting. Vincenzo, can you name some interesting examples on the upcycling of byproducts?
Yes, upcycling means taking something that is now a co-product or waste and turn it into something more valuable. So, for instance, we have done a very nice work on a mango peel, talking about a mango. So, when you process mango to make juice, for instance, you have 60% of waste, peel, kernels, and so on. And what we can do is to use biological method like enzymatic treatment or fermentation. And this way you solubilize them and you can obtain a functional ingredient like for the gut health or for the immune stimulation. So let's say that for more or less all the streams, especially in the vegetable production, we have a high amount of, let's say, this co-product, and there are different, strategies that you can use for upcycling this. This is a very important point when it comes to innovation. I mean, it's not always that the consumer can recognize that there is innovation in a product, because at the end of the day, people will keep on buying the same product. I do not expect it in the future. But I think the example is to make this product, easy, convenient, and healthy. And then we have to understand to which extent the consumer are willing to pay, to give a preference for this more sustainable or innovative product. This is something that is the battle of the future. Until a consumer, just like I want to have the original mango coming from Brazil by plane because they are better in taste and they don't care about sustainability, you will have this example that you mentioned before. Mm-hmm. That should be rejected by consumer having a good awareness. But on the other hand, if the mango are really unripe and taste nothing, we have also a problem in the current supply chain. So that we have.
Or
to
you
find
buy
the
them
balance.
Frozen, and they will be frozen at the right peak
Perfect.
of the ripeness.
Or dried, dried,
Or dried, yes.
sugar taste. Yeah.
And up till now, why aren't there more products with alternative proteins? Is that due to food cost or issues with food safety, or how do you look at that?
always at me. Yes, it's too expensive. So now the technology that we have with all these cultivated meat, but also with other alternatives, microalgae, it's simply the product that, with the current technology, these ingredients are too expensive. So, and then, I mean, at the end of the day, why I should go for an alternative burger when my conventional meat burger cost the half of 30% less. So the reality is that now we are, as a scientist, we are developing all these solutions, waiting the time that the price of meat will go really up. For instance, talking about meat alternative. At that point, all these alternatives will kick in and becoming a real competition. But at the moment, I mean, all these alternatives are more expensive. So you really need to have the consumer that have very strong ethical motivation to make this choice.
Dorothee, I see you nodding. Do you agree with
Yeah,
Antoine?
completely. I completely agree about the costs. And then there's also what we don't understand all the time is the cost of the wheel of change. So because the consumer has always products that they are consuming day by day, but when they want to have an alternative, they will taste it, they will try because it's funny, because it's creative, they want innovation, but they don't change their way of eating. They're going back to their specific traditional product that they already had before. So this is the most different thing, is to make the consumer change their habits and try, not only try, but put the new types of food inside their diet. That's the most difficult thing to do. And sometimes maybe we have the wrong way of doing it because we try to imitate a product that we know, burgers, pasta and things like that. Maybe with new products we have to create new final products. Maybe we don't have to make an alternative to burgers, but we have to do something else that it's not known for the moment, and be more innovative also in the final product we propose to the consumer. But still, there's this problem of the wheel of change that is still difficult for the consumer.
Talking about consumers, we've been talking a lot, so we've come to an end in discussing our 5 statements. And at this point, there's room for questions. So I suggest we divide the questions. Does anyone have a question for Frédéric, Émilie, or Eveline? And if so, could somebody with a microphone go to the gentleman on the right?
Someone with a mic?
I can speak loud. Thanks very much. Thanks for a great format and the great discussion we had already. My question is, and it came up when we look at affordability, at cost, at price, and taste being the main drivers for the consumers to decide for the rebuying of a food. Isn't the main challenge as a consequence when we look for best sustainability, best nutrition, because when you look at nutrition guidelines, if people would nourish according to them, they would pay much more than using their normal daily food with high calorie density sometimes and so forth. So is the main challenge to develop technology which makes the best sustainability and the best nutrition cheaper? Is this the real split? Is this the real challenge? And what can we do for doing this systematically?
Who would you like to address your question to? Frédéric, Émilie, Eveline?
Yeah, we can start with Frédéric and go through.
Thank you, Professor Windhap, for the interesting question, as usual. No, I think technology is absolutely an answer. Yes, it's a domain, basically, and it's a little bit in conflict with the whole theory about the processing, which bears this negative reputation. It will really be through rethinking potentially also our processes, making them, keeping them safe, because that's an absolute minimum. It's a license to operate, safe, healthy, but yet sustainable. So to move that transition not only from because in the end, today we are also focusing a lot for the moment on when we say sustainability, we want to have 100% of our raw materials sourced sustainably. but there's indeed more. There is also, with the same ingredients, how can we get more out of that and with a better nutritional profile? The challenge will also be, and it's with all of us here in the room, that whenever you have sustainable or products that bear a sustainability claim, that you can also get a little bit better price for it, because it comes with a price tag. There is not such a thing as if you want to valorize your farmers, for instance, in the countries of origin more, yes, you also need to pay them a bit more, otherwise it doesn't happen. Same with the end product. Sustainable products come with a little bit of a higher price tag. Not a lot, it's actually not a lot, but it will come. And that we'll have to find that way, I think. But yeah, so a long answer to say yes. Yeah.
Maybe just to add, I think that one of the levers that we can use as food processors to really make and tastier, more sustainable, cheaper products is to work on food waste. You've talked about this as well. Like if we can valorize what we throw away today, which we are trying to minimize since many, many years, just from a cost perspective, but if we can valorize it and put it into the market, that will make also the main products cheaper. Because you can split the cost on more products. That is one thing that I think that we really need to look at. And then the other thing that it's also not only our responsibility, but it's education. And we see that a lot. I think that it should be something that they teach in primary school or whatever, that everybody needs to learn more. What is the impact of health or of what you eat on your health? Because we see that one of the big challenges with our current food system is, of course, the sustainability, the carbon footprint and everything, but it's also the health of the population. People are more and more obese. There's a lot of other issues with our current food system, and that costs a lot of money as well. And instead of having to pay afterwards once people are unhealthy, let's invest proactively in educating people about what is the impact of what they eat to avoid costs later on in their life. So I think food waste and education can be critical to achieve these targets.
Maybe to add also, so it's not only about actively or proactively approaching the consumers, but also our customers. If we today look at our portfolio of deep-fried potato products, we use 2 oils, palm oil and sunflower oil. We are actively promoting and pushing also a bit more towards our customer to make the shift from palm oil to sunflower oil for 2 reasons. Sustainability reasons, because for us it's more locally produced. And secondly, sunflower oil contains more unsaturated fatty acids, which are more healthy in the end. And on taste, we don't see any difference. And that we have proven lately.
Okay, thank you. There was another question from the gentleman in the center.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tini van Boekel from Wageningen University. I think the panel is playing a very easy home game here in a room full of technologists. So everyone will agree that ultra-processing is completely stupid and clean label working is all fine. But I think we are avoiding a big question here. Why are people so enthusiastic about ultra-processing? There's categorizing, which is stupid. I agree with that. But apparently it appeals to the public. This session is called Food Sciences Meet Society. Here you have society who says this is a very good category. And I would like the panel to ask, why do you think that is? Why do we not have a good answer? And I think one of the reasons is we are not communicating well with society. We are just sending messages. What we do with our technology is good for the consumer. But the consumer is not buying that anymore. And I think we should change our strategy in the sense that we should not communicate as sending, but we should communicate by having a dialogue. And this concept, for instance, of clean label, I find a completely wrong answer to the problem that there is. People are afraid of e-numbers, okay, but do you change that by changing the recipe? I think the problem here is the transparency. People are not seeing why we are using e-numbers. They have a function. And if you are replacing e-numbers with something else, that something else still does the same thing, but the only thing is you don't need to number it anymore. So I think the biggest challenge that we see, we need to have a real dialogue with the consumers, and especially for the people in the panel from the industry, I think you should have much more a dialogue and not so much a marketing research.
Any volunteer wishing to respond to this claim? You, sir? Sorry.
Yes, Kees de Gooijer, the Netherlands. I had basically the same remark as Tini, or Professor Van Boekel, sorry, Tini. I think we have the wrong people on the audience and sitting over there, because the big 7 companies spend 10 times more in marketing than they spend in R&D. And these are the R&D people, the engineers. I'm an engineer as well, but I totally agree with Tini. We should have at least half of the seats taken by chief marketing officers next year, because they are the ones who are going to decide about the next packaging. They are the ones who are going to decide, okay, we will do 100% sustainable sourcing. They are the ones who primarily communicate with the customers, not the engineers. I love my job, you love your job, but we should include that other group as well, I think.
Maybe just to add, the marketeers will also think about how good a product sells. So that's maybe coming back to the point. And there, we've had it different times, but we need to be able to combine price, taste, and sustainability. You need to add all of it and then bring on the consumers. I think your point was right. I didn't have much to say, because you're right. We need to have a better dialogue, which is more and more possible thanks to social media and other things, to include what do consumers want and need in the end.
Anyone willing to have a dialogue with our scientists, Dorothee and Vincenzo? Questions for them, maybe? The lady in the center.
Thank you for the great discussion. I was just wondering, curiosity for Vincenzo and Dorothy. Dorothy, you say that people try to taste alternative food, but they doesn't want to change. And this is very interesting, because my question is like, if we are going to try to change the byproducts in novel product, what can happen hopefully in the near future, where we are going to scalable the process and make this novel product marketable with the customers? It's just a curiosity.
Yeah, so if I understand, your question is how we can change that, the neophobia or the not willing to change.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's how we present the new product. That's one point, because it's always difficult to find the good way. If you sell a bacteria burger, I would say, yeah, bacteria burger, okay, what's that? The idea is to include more also the consumer inside the innovation hub, you will say. And so that's why we have initiatives like we are, the Smart Gastronomy Lab, to be able to include also the consumer and to know how they want to see this type of product, what are the problems with those type of products, what do they feel about those products, and to see how can we change the way we present the product, and which kind of information they need to have just to be sure they are secured with those type of products. And so I think it's, again, it's communication, it's talking with the consumer, including them in the process. I think that would be the nicer way to have some acceptable product, new product innovation.
Does this answer your question? Okay. Maybe one question for Vincenzo? The lady.
Thank you. Catherine Renard from NRAE. I have a question which is for Vincenzo, but also for the other member of the panels. We've been talking a lot about consumers. You've been talking about preventing food waste, but we did a recension at INRAE, and most of the largest part of food waste is at the consumer's home. So my question is, what do we know, what would we need to know also about what the consumers do? Because they waste a lot of food. We had a European project looking at hygiene in the kitchen, and that was terrifying. So how do we communicate some of the things which seem to us maybe pretty basic to the consumers? And what are the solutions, like for packaging, smaller packages for smaller families, but that's more packaging.
Thank you, Katharina. I think it's a very good point that you raise, and I think my answer now. I think I will not have many friends now. But the point is, I mean, we keep on treating these consumers like, you know, very smart people, very ready to all this sustainability. I mean, this is not the reality. The reason why the ultra-processed food works very well, because it's black and white. People don't have to think, and they decide. I mean, the reason why people waste is because they don't care. The food is too cheap, because this is the reality, that we pay for our, you know, the average European pay for the food a minor fraction of their income, even those that are not that rich. Anyway, they found very cheap food, and they don't care to waste. So, on one hand, I not say that we don't have educate and so on, but we have to be also aware that all this effort do not reach a significant part of the population because they don't want to be reached. I mean, and that's on these people. There are other actions that should be done, either, let's say, from the food industry, like making the food with some ingredients they don't know as far as it's cheap enough, and so making this more sustainable intrinsically, or by taxation, so enforcement top-down. So I think we have also to realize a bit the bitter reality that not everybody is so much into, you know, making the world a better place, more sustainable, and so on. I mean, people don't believe the climate change. I mean, what we are talking about. So there is this reality. I think we have to keep in mind when we think all these strategies.
Does anyone? Does anyone have a question for Thibaut, sitting next to me?
There.
Thank you for giving me the chance to ask something. But I got just a small question. Does freezing food also mean a loss of quality and flavor?
Freezing.
Freezing food, yes.
We can take this. No, it's basically freezing is fixing the quality. So the most important is to put quality in to get quality out. If you would freeze, for example, because coming back to the food waste, you can also, one of the biggest things that people waste is bread. The best thing to avoid if your bread, if you only eat half, but you freeze it and then you take it out, and it fixes the quality. So our responsibility as frozen food manufacturers is to use high quality raw materials that goes in. We've seen sometimes in the past that frozen food doesn't, and some manufacturers don't always put the best quality. So that's sometimes the perception of frozen is that it's less quality, but actually it just depends on what you put in. If you put high quality beans, spinach, potatoes, whatever, and you freeze it, you will have high quality products to consume.
I think Frederik also wanted to share his thoughts.
You would maybe be surprised, but also in the chocolate industry, a lot of products are frozen.
Fish as well.
Why is that? Because chocolate is a seasonal, I mean, in consumption, it is typically seasonal product, Christmas, Easter. But production in the factories, of course, the whole year round. Logistically, there is stocks that needs to be managed. Now, chocolate doesn't get better with time. So basically, what is done by certain companies, they put chocolate at minus temperature. So minus 20, 30, 40, 50 degrees. Yeah. Big brands. I'm not going to call names because then they are probably knocking on my door. But anyhow, there's nothing wrong with that because technically we can even say it's not freezing because there's almost no water inside chocolate. So the transition from liquid to solid doesn't even happen. So technically, it's not even freezing. Like my colleague says, it's actually locking the certain quality that is in there. Okay, what still goes on is enzymatic processes. They go on in let's say, reduced rate, but they still go on. So does it get better? No, but you can actually prolong your shelf life in this way and manage your stocks in a better way. Now, the risky thing is not freezing or going to sub-zero temperatures. It's coming back to plus 20 degrees, because that you need to do in steps. Because, of course, there's a lot of moisture in this air, and if you start putting products that are minus 20 degrees too quickly at 20 degrees in the environment, you get condensation, and then you get risks of microbiological growth on products that are properly stored in the freezer, but are not correctly thawed. So that's an important step. But yes, it happens, maybe more than you would think, and yeah. It's part of our also reducing waste strategies. Yeah.
All right, final question maybe for the short chain supply next to me. Gentlemen.
Thank you for all the panelist discussions. I'm a chemist from Turkish Academy of Sciences, and I wish to direct my contribution or question to the scientists. I'll return to question 1 or statement 1. Ultra-processed food can be a part of a healthy lifestyle question. I think the matrix effect is very important, because you cannot put all the vitamins in the same place. If the vitamins are in a texture or in a matrix together with the polyphenolics, then of course ultra-processing will degrade. For example, vitamin C or ascorbic acid, whatever you do, you will degrade because of the many catalytic processes that we cannot imagine. But if it stands alone, it is degradable. But if ascorbic acid or vitamin C is together with polyphenols, then they will endure. They will stand against degradation. So we have to make a distinction, I think, between vitamins, whether they are together with polyphenols or other things in the matrix. Thank you.
Yeah, I can go first.
I think we are on the same the same way. It's just what I explained about the matrix and the way that products inside nature are organized on a way to protect. And also vitamins in natural products are there to protect the fruit, for example, or the vegetables. So what we do by making cracking, selecting different ingredients or molecules, and then putting them together to have the good taste, to have the good preservation and everything, it's not what nature is doing. So you're changing the way the food goes to your digestive tract. So yeah, I agree with you. You make some example of what the matrix effect is, so thank you.
If I may add, I mean, it's completely right. I mean, we can follow the nature. We can also follow the science without the nature. So recombining, based on our knowledge, making a design that is a smart design, and that's, I mean, it's plenty of possibilities. The point so is using this design formulation processing in a scientific sound way, and I think we are all aware of what needs to be done. And in this respect, for instance, with legumes, we know that when you make a flour out of legumes, like just by dry grinding, you destroy all the structure, and it's possible just to using some meshing and keeping the cell intact, and you have much better performance. So we know many things, and we can transfer this to the final product. We also need, on the other side, consumers that are willing to take this as innovation.
Mm-hmm. So thanks to you all for your questions and your comments and your feedback. But for now, it's time to reassess our 5 statements. So in a few moments on the screen right now, you'll see the QR code, and you can scan it and then score the 5 statements. We'll continue our debate within 5 minutes, so go ahead. Beetje water. Willen jullie het ook doen?
Waarom niet?
You want to do it as well? So, before we look into the results, a small recap of what has struck me during this debate. I think we can all agree that the food industry is moving forwards by taking the right step in facing today's challenges. Think of our first statement regarding processed food versus a healthy lifestyle. Scientific research conducted by Ghent University has proven that frozen vegetables and fruit contain more vitamins and nutrients compared to their fresh counterparts. Furthermore, we cannot ignore that the processing of food is inevitable to reach as many consumers as possible. If it comes to information on the packaging, there's a dual responsibility from both legislative bodies to put useful information on the packaging and at the same time from consumers who need to know how to safely use which quantities of food. And as Ardo pointed out during the discussion of the third statement, local is by no means a synonym for sustainable, since Belgian tomatoes in greenhouses are less sustainable than Spanish ones growing on fields. From the fourth statement, I recall that frozen food reduces food waste as less food is wasted at supermarkets and at home. And in order to reduce waste, fresh food also needs packaging from contamination, spoilage, and protection during transport. Our fifth and final discussion made clear that looking for innovative, sustainable alternatives, the upcycling of byproducts, and the use of fermentation is key in facing environmental issues. But let's not forget that food innovation doesn't necessarily need to be far-fetched or exotic. Think about the nutritional value of the often overlooked broccoli stems, just to name one thing. But enough with the theory. I guess you're as curious as I am for the voting results. What impact did this discussion have on your views? Let's find out together. So, do you understand all the information on food packaging? 62% shares some, not all. Is this somewhat a surprising percentage to any one of you, or is it in line with what you figured already? Can one of you elaborate on the percentage?
I think didn't change very much from the before, as expected. I mean,
yeah. Okay.
The 35 that say all, I would like to make an exam to them. Because I don't think I understand all of them, so that's...
Good. The second statement. Ultra-processed food can be part of a healthy lifestyle. You have more than half of the respondents that agree. I think that percentage increased during this debate. Are you happy to see that?
Yes, of course. I think we are happy to bring some more awareness, even if it is only this audience. So please take it home as well.
And any message to the rather agree category? What would you say to those people?
I think it's good that the stigma around processed food doesn't stick too much. At the same time, I think that there were some very good insights from the scientific colleagues that you have processed food and you have processed food. So that's, I think, also important to still keep in mind.
Any other comments on the results?
I think it's also really good to see that the communication at least drives us in the right direction. So to the point made by some of the people here in the audience. Yeah. And by the way, we do communicate with our marketeers. That is not a stigma, and I want to say that here explicitly. They actually frame a lot of the messages based on R&D and engineering input. So that's a fact, but okay. Yeah.
All right, third statement. To reduce my carbon footprint, I prefer local products. Maybe this is the time for you to elaborate on the percentages, Thibaut. How do you look at them?
Not sure what it was before. If there's any idea in the...
I think before the percentage of agree and rather agree made up to 55 in total together.
Okay.
So right now
66.
Better.
So it's better. Yeah, I think rather agrees is pointed out most, and I think that's true also. I think that's the answer. It's not always yes. It's sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay, clear. Fourth statement. Foods are often unnecessarily packaged and contribute significantly to the overconsumption of plastic packaging. So the rather agree is the dominant percentage in this statement. Anyone willing to comment? Frederik?
But I can only echo what Vincenzo has said. If as a company you overpackage your food product, you're stupid. Because it's a cost. Why would you? The challenge is always the other way around. We are challenged internally to put less packaging. Also, governments are now challenging us to put less packaging. And I think that's very good that that happens. So there is the PPWR coming, so packaging and packaging waste reduction coming. So with very strict guidelines, and there are people in the audience that know much more about it than myself. but with very strict guidelines that you will be able to put only products on the markets whether they comply to a certain recyclability degree in the packaging. So this is coming. It's also enforced. The last point I want to make is also what was said. It is not only a responsibility of, the food waste in general of companies. It's also indeed consumers. And I'm also a citizen, you know. And if I was shocked when I heard for the Belgian and maybe other audience that use litter bags or bags that are collected. Basically, I was shocked to understand how much of that bag still contains food where the best before or use by date was not even surpassed. Food that was still perfectly consumable that people simply throw away. So, of course, now in citizens and in governments, they also now force people to have litter bags that weigh less. Now, people already complain about the fact that the litter bag in Belgium costs €1.70. The price they should ask to have actually, to also compensate for the cost of basically destroying all of this, is the double, minimum the double, to be break even. That's what we hear. And the only communities where you see it works to reduce litter is actually communities where they use a system with containers that are actually weighed, so that the person, depending on your weight that you have actually put, that you pay more. It's really a fact. Paying makes people think. And that's also what we need to give as a message. There's only this way, unfortunately, to drive change, apparently, despite all the efforts of marketing in food companies. Yes. Yeah.
Fifth statement. We are open-minded to new food innovations. I would taste them or buy them in a supermarket. In our previous chart, 30% of our core audience was hesitant in tasting or buying these innovations. And right now, that percentage has decreased. Anyone willing to share his thoughts on that evolution?
Yeah, maybe what I think is that for the moment we don't have problems of having food. We don't have such climatic problems for the moment, individual climatic problems, I would say. But maybe in the future, when we won't have enough water, when it will have 5 degrees more, problems of having very simple products such as cereals and things like that, maybe at that point, people will be willing to eat those new foods. And so I think we are not consumer are not for the moment in a urgent state to use those products. But we, scientists and companies, we have to work on that because we have to be ready at that point when people will have this problem, when having a steak, a meat won't be possible anymore, we will have to eat something. So for the moment, it's too early, I would say, but we have to be ready for that.
Okay. I think it's clear that our panel discussion affected your opinion. And once again, I think what stays with me, that communication is key. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap for this session. Thanks to all the panel members being present. Thanks for your attention. And thanks, of course, to Fevia, Wagralim, Flanders Food, and all the sponsors involved. I hope you all continue the conversation during lunch break and in the very near future. Stay seated because the organization will bring a small gift to all of you.
Thank you. Small gift is a big gift.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Wow, what a box.
Ja, maar ça va. Dat is oké.
Hartelijk dank.
This will be practical in the train.
Local.
Ja.
Thank you.
Is misschien...
Het is...
Oh, dank u wel. Merci. Ja, het is thematisch raakpunten, maar natuurlijk niet de kern.